My name is Shala Smith. I'm 29 years old, and this happened last year. I'm finally far enough away from it emotionally that I can tell the story without feeling like I need to throw my phone into a lake afterward. At the time, my life was stable. Not flashy, not dramatic, just steady in a way that took years of discipline and a lot of quiet choices no one ever applauds. I'm a freelance photographer based in Columbus, Ohio. Not weddings, not newborns wrapped in blankets and placed in baskets. I shoot editorial work, landscapes, travel features, long-form photo stories for magazines, and tourism boards. The kind of photography that means waking up at 4 o'clock a.m. to chase light most people sleep through. Some months I'm booked solid. Other months I survive on stock photo sales and the cushion I built for exactly those stretches. Feast or famine. But it's mine. I had my own one-bedroom apartment in a decent neighborhood where the rent didn't feel like a punishment for existing. Hardwood floors, exposed brick, huge windows with natural light that made editing easier and mornings quieter. Real furniture, not the flimsy temporary kind that screams I'll be gone in 6 months. My camera gear took over half the space. 2 Canon bodies, 6 lenses, tripods, light stands, batteries, memory cards, external hard drives, stacked like a digital archive of my life. My closet looked like a camera store had exploded. My car was a 2019 Honda Accord Sport, certified pre-owned, paid in cash, heated seats, backup camera, solid gas mileage, nothing flashy, just reliable, like me. I paid my bills on time, had a 6-month emergency fund, filed quarterly taxes without panic, cooked actual meals. In short, I had my life together without needing applause for it. And then there was Ethan. I met him about 3.5 years earlier at an art gallery opening a friend dragged me to. One of those trendy downtown spaces with exposed ductwork, overpriced wine, and paintings that looked like abstract accidents someone decided to frame. Ethan was standing alone near a twisted metal sculpture, holding a glass of wine he clearly wasn't drinking. I joked that the sculpture looked like a bicycle crash frozen in time. He laughed. We started talking, and somehow it just flowed. He worked in corporate operations, organized, structured, spreadsheets for everything. The complete opposite of my freelance chaos. But instead of clashing, we balanced each other. What I liked about Ethan was how grounded he felt. He didn't apologize for liking structure, didn't romanticize instability. He liked that I worked freelance but still paid my bills and owned real furniture. Apparently, that alone made me stand out from the other creative types he'd dated. For the first 2 years, our relationship felt genuinely easy. We didn't fight about money, or trust, or the future. We talked about serious things without pressure, where we might live someday, whether we wanted kids, how we'd handle finances if we ever bought a house. It felt like we were moving in the same direction at the same pace. Looking back now, I realize that easy sometimes means unquestioned. Our weekends followed a rhythm I loved. Saturday mornings, we'd hit hiking trails so I could scout photography locations. Ethan packed snacks in this neat little backpack with compartments for everything. Apples separated so they wouldn't bruise. Very him. He'd sit on a blanket, reading, while I spent an hour adjusting tripod angles and chasing the perfect shot. Never complained. Never rushed me. Sometimes he'd carry my tripod without being asked. My camera bag alone weighs about 25 pounds when fully loaded, and he'd haul it up rocky inclines without making a big deal out of it. Small things, but they mattered. Sundays were usually for visiting his parents, and somehow I fell in love with them almost as much as I fell in love with him. His father, Robert, was a retired engineer, quiet, precise, the kind of man who measured everything twice and labeled his tools like he was running a hardware library. His garage was immaculate. Pegboards with outlined tool shapes, drawers labeled by screw size, a workbench clean enough to eat off. He taught me woodworking like I was already family, explained things patiently, let me mess up on scrap wood before touching the real materials, helped me build the desk that still sits in my apartment. When it was finished, he inspected every joint, then gave a small nod. Good work, Shala. This will last. Coming from him, that meant everything. His mother, Patricia, was a retired elementary school teacher who treated me like I belonged from day one. Fresh coffee waiting every Sunday. Leftovers packed whether I asked or not. Articles sent to me during the week because she thought I'd find them interesting. She ran a massive vegetable garden like a research project. Charts, notebooks, labeled rows. She even let me help redesign her greenhouse layout using the same planning approach I use for shoots. After that, she started calling me her garden consultant. Both of them constantly told Ethan how lucky he was to have me. Robert made casual comments about marriage while we worked in the garage. Patricia talked about future grandchildren like it was already decided. When I showed up at their house, they treated me like I was already part of the family, not someone who might disappear. By early fall last year, I started seriously thinking about proposing. Not out of pressure, not because it was time, but because it felt right. I researched rings the way I research camera gear. Learned about settings, durability, cuts. Found a simple white gold band with a clean setting. Nothing flashy. Exactly Ethan's style. I hid it in my camera bag, in a pocket he never touched because it was work stuff. Every time I grabbed a lens, my heart did this stupid little flip. I even planned the proposal. A cabin 2 hours north. Winter. Sunset by the lake, camera on a timer. I wanted to document it. Not for social media, but for us. Everything was mapped out. And then, something shifted. The first crack was small enough that I almost missed it. I got some big career news. My work accepted into a competitive gallery exhibition. Something I'd been chasing for years. I showed Ethan the email, showed him the prints. He glanced at them for maybe 5 seconds. "Oh, that's great, babe," he said without looking up from his phone. Then he went right back to scrolling. I told myself he was tired, stressed, busy with work. Everyone has off days. I didn't know then that this was the beginning of being emotionally alone in a relationship that still looked perfect from the outside. And I definitely didn't know that someone from his past was already quietly stepping back into our future. If you'd asked me back then, when things actually started going wrong, I wouldn't have been able to give you a clean answer. There wasn't a single moment where everything cracked open. It was more like tiny fractures spreading quietly under the surface, invisible until the whole thing gave way. The first time Ethan mentioned her, it felt harmless. "Oh, I ran into Lena near my office today," he said one night while we were making dinner. Lena. His ex-girlfriend. The one he'd dated in college. The one he hadn't mentioned more than a handful of times in 3.5 years. I didn't react. People run into old partners all the time. Columbus isn't that big. "How is she?" I asked, genuinely neutral. "She's different," he said, shrugging. "Moved back recently. Guess she's been through a lot." That was it, or so I thought. Over the next few weeks, her name started popping up more often. Always casual, always framed like coincidence. Lena recommended this coffee place downtown. Lena says the short north has totally changed. Lena thinks people get stuck in Columbus because they're afraid to take risks. That last one stuck with me. Not because it was cruel, but because of the way he said it. Like he was testing the idea out loud, seeing how it felt. I told myself I was being sensitive, that I shouldn't read into it. Ethan had never given me a reason not to trust him. He'd always been steady, predictable, loyal. Except, predictability can hide distance if you're not careful. His phone started living in his hand. At dinner, he'd scroll while I talked. During movies, he'd tilt the screen away whenever a notification popped up. When I asked who he was texting, the answers were vague. Work stuff. Group chat. Just catching up with people. Catching up with people, plural, but somehow always connected to one name. He started coming home later. Said he was running errands, grabbing coffee, going for walks to clear his head. Sometimes he'd be gone for hours and come back with nothing to show for it. No groceries, no receipts, just that distant look like his mind was somewhere else. Meanwhile, the Ethan I knew, the one who used to ask about my shoots, who wanted to hear about lighting challenges and client drama, barely reacted when I spoke. I'd tell him about a difficult assignment or an idea for a new photo series, and he'd nod absently. That's cool. Nice. While his thumbs flew across his phone. But when he talked about Lana, his energy changed. Apparently, she'd reinvented herself. Back in college, according to Ethan, she'd been irresponsible, always chasing big dreams without backup plans. Art projects, startups, big ideas, no follow-through. That instability was why they broke up. But now she was successful, ambitious, exciting. "She's working on something big," he said one night, eyes bright. Like, actually big. Took risks, moved around, didn't settle. There it was again. Settle. He started questioning his own choices out loud. Whether staying at the same company too long was holding him back. Whether structure had made him boring. whether playing it safe meant missing out. And I became the unspoken comparison. I was stability, routine, planning. She was possibility, chaos, reinvention. I didn't argue. I didn't interrogate him. I didn't become the jealous girlfriend who demanded access to his phone. Because part of me already knew something was slipping away, and I wasn't sure I wanted to hear it confirmed. By mid-November, the distance was undeniable. Thanksgiving came up. My family had invited Ethan weeks earlier. He'd already said yes. My mom had planned the head count, bought groceries, asked what he liked. When I asked him to confirm the time we'd leave, he hesitated. Maybe we should keep things more flexible this year, he said. Flexible how? I asked, confused. I don't know. Less structured. I feel like we plan everything to death. This from the man who color-coded his calendar, who scheduled grocery trips, who hated last-minute changes. My mom just needs to know how much food to make, I said carefully. I know, he replied quickly. I'm just feeling overwhelmed lately. Can I let you know closer to the date? Red flags everywhere. I told my mom he might not come. She didn't believe my explanation about work stress, but she didn't push. That night, lying awake next to Ethan, I realized something terrifying. I was already preparing for the end. You know that feeling when you can sense something dying, but it's not dead yet? Like a plant with yellowing leaves. You keep watering it, hoping it'll bounce back, even though you know it won't. That was November. I should have confronted him, asked directly what was going on with Lena, demanded honesty. But I didn't, because I wanted to see how far he'd take it, how long he'd let me slowly disappear instead of just ending things cleanly. Whether he'd remember that I deserved more than being phased out while he tested the waters with someone else. It didn't take long. The text came on a Tuesday evening. Can we meet? We need to talk. My stomach dropped. We met at the diner we used to go to after long days. Same booth, same cracked vinyl seats, same milkshake menu that hadn't changed in years. Except nothing else felt the same. Ethan was already there, staring at his water glass, picking at the condensation like he was rehearsing something. That's when I knew. And I understood with terrifying clarity that this conversation had already happened in his head, without me. I slid into the booth across from Ethan, the vinyl seat sticking slightly to the back of my legs. The diner smelled like grease and coffee and familiarity. Comfort I didn't feel anymore. Everything okay? I asked, even though my body already knew the answer. He didn't look at me, just stared at his water glass, tracing the ring of condensation with his fingernail, like it might give him courage. I've been thinking, he said finally. His voice was careful, measured, like he was delivering bad news to a client instead of ending a 3.5-year relationship. About us, he meant. My stomach dropped, but I kept my face neutral. Okay. He took a breath. Lena reached out to me a few weeks ago. She's been going through a really hard time. There it was, the name I'd been bracing for. Her business partner screwed her over, he continued. There's legal stuff, money problems. She doesn't really have anyone. I waited, let him talk himself into it. She needs support right now, he said. Someone who understands her. I nodded slowly, heart pounding, like I was watching the end of something from outside my body. And what does that have to do with us? He finally looked up. His eyes were full of something I recognized instantly, relief. I still care about her, he said. I think maybe I always have. The words landed between us like broken glass. So, I said quietly, what are you saying? I think we should just be friends, he replied. Lena needs me more right now, and I need space to figure out what I really want without being in a relationship. There it was, not confusion, not uncertainty, a decision. 3.5 years reduced to a sentence that made it sound noble, like he was doing something compassionate instead of choosing someone else. I didn't cry, didn't raise my voice, didn't beg. I just sat there, breathing through the moment where my future collapsed in on itself. Okay, I said after a beat. I hope you're happy. He looked relieved, like he'd been carrying something heavy and finally set it down, completely unaware that what he dropped was the last shred of respect I had left for him. I slid out of the booth, pulled a 20 from my wallet, and placed it on the table for his meal, even though I hadn't ordered anything. Then I walked out. The cold hit my face as soon as I stepped outside. I got in my car and drove home without looking back, my hands steady on the wheel, my mind eerily calm. Later that night, alone in my apartment, I pulled the ring box out of my camera bag. $4,000. Hours of planning. A future that no longer existed. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't throw it. Didn't scream. Didn't sob on the floor like I'd seen in movies. I just felt clear, like I'd been watching a slow-motion car crash for weeks and it finally happened. He didn't leave because he had to. He left because he wanted to see if something else was better. And that was fine. Better to know now than spend more years being someone's safe option. The weeks after the breakup passed quietly. I kept waiting for the devastation to hit, for the shower crying, the late night texts, the social media stalking. It never came. Instead, I worked. I took assignments I'd usually pass on. A travel feature on coastal lighthouses, portrait sessions for startups, even real estate photography to keep my schedule full. The camera became my therapy. Every sunrise shoot, every perfectly framed landscape, every image that turned out better than expected. It stitched something back together inside me. In January, the gallery show opened. Some of my prints sold. Nothing life-changing, but enough to feel validated. Enough to know I was moving forward while something else was falling apart. Friends mentioned Ethan occasionally, always carefully, like they were testing whether I wanted updates. "He's with Lena now," someone said once. "They seem serious." I nodded and changed the subject. Then the story started shifting. Lena wasn't who she claimed to be. Her successful business turned out to be smoke and mirrors, bad investments, questionable deals, debt stacked on debt. Ethan tried to save her. He drained his savings, covered her rent, paid legal fees, maxed out credit cards trying to keep her world from collapsing. Within months, he'd lost his apartment, quit his job from the stress, burned through the goodwill of friends who were tired of bailing him out. I didn't feel satisfied hearing this, just unsurprised. People who chase illusions eventually trip over reality. By March, I was offered a travel assignment in Oregon, hidden hiking trails for a magazine I'd worked with before. 2 weeks on location, all expenses covered. I said yes without hesitation. That's where I met Noah. He was the editor overseeing the project, sharp, direct, and refreshingly unimpressed by nonsense. Our first meeting was over a glitchy video call. He wore a flannel, hair a mess, sitting in what looked like a coffee shop with terrible Wi-Fi. "Your connection's cutting out," I said. "Yeah," he replied. "Welcome to rural Oregon, where internet is more of a suggestion." I laughed. The sound surprised me. We worked together for 2 weeks, me shooting, him reviewing, pushing me to tell stories instead of just capturing pretty images. He challenged me. I challenged him. No flirting, no tension, just two people who respected each other. Somewhere between long hikes and late-night editing sessions, I realized I was looking forward to talking to him more than anything else. It felt easy, natural, like I didn't have to prove my worth. And that's when I knew I wasn't broken. I'd just finally stepped out of a story where I was never meant to be the ending. By the time spring settled in, my life had found a rhythm again. Not the old one, the one built around accommodating someone else's moods and silences, but a new, quieter version that belonged entirely to me. Work was steady. Better than steady, actually. The Oregon assignment led to more inquiries. Editors passed my name around. People remembered my work. I started getting emails that didn't begin with, "We can't pay much, but..." And Noah stayed. Not in a dramatic whirlwind way. He didn't suddenly become my boyfriend overnight. We just kept talking, kept working together, kept choosing to make space for each other. Texts about articles turned into jokes. Jokes turned into late-night conversations about childhood, ambition, fear. He never rushed me, never asked me to explain my past, never tried to fix anything. He simply showed up. That alone felt revolutionary. I didn't think about Ethan much anymore. When his name came up through mutual friends, it felt distant, like hearing about someone you used to know in another life. Until the night he reminded me exactly who he was. It was late April, around 11 at night. Rain I hadn't noticed was falling hard enough to rattle against my windows. Noah was asleep on my couch, a book open on his chest. We'd spent the evening editing photos for a small local assignment. Quiet, comfortable. Then someone started pounding on my front door. Not knocking, pounding. Hard enough that the sound echoed through my apartment. At first, I thought it was a neighbor, maybe someone drunk and confused. Then I heard the yelling. "Shala, open the door!" My stomach dropped. I knew that voice. I opened the door. Ethan stood there completely soaked, rain plastering his hair to his forehead. His clothes clung to him like he'd been standing in the storm for a while, mascara-free, raw-faced, eyes wild and unfocused. And behind him, 3 people, phones raised. Recording. I could see the little red dots glowing in the dark. "This has to be a joke," I said quietly. He pointed at me, hand shaking. "You left me. You ruined my life. You did this to me." I stared at him, trying to reconcile this version with the man who used to organize his calendar down to 15-minute blocks. "What are you doing, Ethan?" I asked. He stepped closer, voice cracking. "You think you're better than me now? Posting your happy little pictures while I'm suffering? You abandoned me. One of his friends whispered loudly, "Keep filming. This is going to be good." That's when I understood. This wasn't closure. This was a performance. Noah appeared behind me, already pulling out his phone. "I'm calling the police," he said calmly. Ethan laughed, a hollow, hysterical sound. "Go ahead. Let everyone see what kind of woman she really is." I didn't raise my voice, didn't move from the doorway. I just looked at him. "You weren't abandoned," I said. "You made a choice. You left because you thought you found something better, and when it fell apart, you came looking for someone to blame." For a split second, I saw it. Recognition. Then it vanished. He started yelling again, accusing, crying, pounding his fist against my shoulder while his friends kept recording. I didn't touch him, didn't react. I let him unravel on camera. The police arrived 6 minutes later. I showed them the security footage from my apartment building. Him yelling, trespassing, trying to force his way inside. The officers didn't need long. "Sir, you need to leave," one of them said. "If you come back, you'll be arrested." Ethan looked stunned. His friends slowly lowered their phones. As they walked him back to the car, he turned one last time. "You'll regret this, Shala. You should have saved me." I didn't answer. I closed the door, locked it, and leaned against it while the rain kept falling. Noah put his hand on my shoulder. "You okay?" I nodded. "For the first time in a long time," I said. "Yeah, I really am." A month later, I packed what mattered and moved west. A small coastal town in Oregon. Foggy mornings, salt in the air, quiet streets where nobody knew my past. I opened a small photography studio, white walls, good light, enough space to breathe. Noah kept freelancing. I kept shooting. We didn't talk about Ethan. We didn't need to, because peace doesn't require